This is Understanding Elon Musk, and I wanted to make a podcast about traveling and people in the future doing that. But I looked this morning at the All In podcast, and I saw this talking. And if you remember, I always said that Elon Musk needs company, needs management, and then the agile teams under it, and no middle management, because middle management is, for me, and I also have experience with it, has no function anymore. Especially if you use agile. Agile doesn't need management; they manage themselves and they report to the higher tier, and the higher tier can even be the CEO, and maybe a small layer there to look what the agile teams are doing and that they are checked with each other. This can also be done by software, but dashboard or something, and that maybe one or two people under the CEO can manage that, and that's all you need for middle management. But let's look what other people think about it. Am I wrong, or maybe not?
What makes our industry and our ecosystem very adaptive over time is that it's constantly, it does face survival pressures, but over the last several years, all the survival pressures were taken away because anybody could raise money, and
there was always another bridge available. There was always extension, and there was some
convertible note to be done.
Right.
There was no reckoning. A lot of these companies just seem to, get another 12 months of runway, another 12 months of runway.
Founders learned so many bad habits during that period of time, and so much entitlement and excess built up in the system during that time.
So this is what I mean. So because there was in the time a little bit previous money enough, everybody goes to hype, and maybe we'll see this hype again with chatbot and AI. The people throw money at it without thinking about it. But there's a lot of overhead in not in new companies, but also in old companies. Let's continue.
And I think now we're seeing that a lot of that is working its way out. I mean, just look at the Facebook results the other day.
So Facebook.
Let's talk about Facebook as an example, because here you have a company where the stock over the past year had been pounded. It was like down over 50%, and the market
$90 a share.
The market did not like its answers around the capital investments it was making, and then Brad Gerstner, our friend, wrote that letter encouraging them to get much more efficient, and then they did that. And
so what it meant much more efficient is cut in the company, invest in the engineers, and management is not needed. So that was already saying a lot. And here also there was a letter to Zuckerberg suggesting that. And
they basically started doing some riffs and basically just getting much more efficient in what they're doing. And
riffs are layoffs, to make it clear.
Specifically taking out layers and layers of middle management. I mean, that was really the big thing. So they kind of took a page out of Elon's book in terms of what Elon had done at Twitter.
So here you see again, even Meta and Zuckerberg see what they know. Agile teams don't need management. They know this management structure is not needed, and they saw what Elon Musk did with Twitter. He attacked directly this middle management piece, throw it out of the company and reorganized it. And this cut so much dead wood that not functional of not piece of the company that doesn't do anything, only managing. Now with AI also you will see that management is all done with expert systems, with AI and the expert systems, so people can manage themselves, and maybe only the big picture, how they have to work on what is the more important things are maybe programmed with the tool for the CEO or the board of directors, and those advices to these teams will be then influenced by these decisions of the board and the CEO. So let's continue.
I mean, not nearly to that extent, because I don't think they needed to, but they targeted this idea of we have too many layers in the company, too many mid-level managers, and the stock ripped, just was it like up 20-25%?
Yeah, in a day, and they're up to, I actually bought it the day they had the layoffs. I put in a buy order, and it was closed at $94, and now it's at $193. And
So to understand what happened with Facebook was Zuckerberg wanted to go to this Meta. He changed the company name from Facebook to Meta because he saw that the future. But there was something I think wrong in his communication, what his goal was or what he was really thinking. And it was also against whole management. The whole management, the idea of a business, what I told. It's Steve Blake says you have to pivot, you have to be more agile, you have to change this old company business plan of management of just keeping the stuff what you're doing at bay and don't pivot or don't look around. Zuckerberg wanted to change the whole company to this virtual reality, this meta world. And of course, management that was already making money and it was already fixed in the places. The business model that was Facebook, they didn't like it and they started to rebel. So I also was maybe a better idea for him to split the company in two or separate those two things. But yeah, if you really want to go with the whole company pivot, then you have to probably cut those managers and make it more an agile company that as the companies as Elon Musk. So let's listen further.
FedEx, of all places, is laying off 10% of its officers and directors. So the idea now is, hey, in the senior ranks, what is the inefficiency there? How do we get more doers, more people who actually are building or operating the companies to take the reins and get rid of this, as you're saying, middle management, this waste?
So, and you just remember with ChatGPT, and with AI now coming online and getting more popular, this will also have an extra influence on these decisions of middle management, the not doers, only the doers. So this will be prompt engineers. They will do all the stuff, and they will be less programmers and less people under the management. But I think the first thing what we hear now is probably also the management will suffer about this. And I think that some management and the most of the task of management can be replaced by an intelligence, artificial intelligence like chatbot, and then specific for your company that is not connected, of course, to the outside world, but that is specific helping your company and use your metrics of your company to do decisions. If you can make a bot like that, it can replace management.
Yeah, let me tell you specifically the problem that builds up in these companies is that everybody wants to be a manager. And so you can't just come at this problem by saying we're going to increase the number of reports that each manager has from 5 to 10. That doesn't work, because let me tell you what happens is that every individual contributor who's a star thinks that their career advancement requires them to manage a team. So what happens is you take that star IC and then you create a team around them. So that person then hires 5 people to manage. And those 5 people are not star. Yeah, they stop working, they just start managing. Yes. Well, maybe you get like 20% more production out of that 6-person unit than you would have just out of the star. But you're spending 5 times more money. So it makes no sense. And the problem is it cascades. So, that IC becomes a manager. They hire 5 people. Then those 5 people, one of them's a star and says, well, I want to be a manager. On all the organizational pressures to keep building more and more teams and more layers.
Here's the quote from...
So this is exactly what also in the early days of my MSO, when I worked in the Netherlands, was the problem. So I was like a good engineer. And of course you want to go management in. And the CEO owner stopped me. He said, you stay an engineer and we will hire somebody else who can manage you. Because within that time there was not enough engineers, and if you lose an engineer to management, you have to find other engineers to do your job. And at that time there were no other engineers. So I was in a bad position. I could not go in management. Of course, I had the powers later as manager, and maybe even more as a manager, to make decisions in the company. But my role was always engineer and more like a builder and something, a problem solver, than somebody who managed a team or managed a piece of the organization. I of course had a time that I managed some people under me. But quickly I saw that also I had no talent for that, so I asked a secretary, somebody who could help me with all the stuff, and later I promoted her quickly to my manager. Of course, she knew that if the that I was still making the decisions, but she was there to help with all the things around the what was going on the department. Later, of course, everybody has this. She thought she could get more influence on the decisions. I led her, of course, and some of the decisions that were really important, I didn't accept, and I explained to her why. And often, most of the time, she agreed, but sometimes she did not agree, and then it was there was a problem. And then you have to think about it. How do I solve this? She was sometimes also right. I was not always right, but yeah, that was a lesson. And at that time, you saw that the engineers, the good people, stayed at engineer their job, and they didn't promote to management. If that time this would happen, they were good managers. There would be at that time a problem with engineering and problem solving. So that's why this was not done. After that, when the engineers start to flow in the IT world from school. There was a lot of engineers coming there, and it became easier, but even then there was still not enough. But then there was a possibility that people go into management, and at that time, that was years later, I didn't see the advantage of that time of a manager, because I was an engineer with the powers of a manager, and that was for me much more attractive than being just an engineer. Just a manager. And of course, when I moved to company, I made the mistake that an engineer has the power of a manager, and that brought me in some problems with some other companies. But yeah, now probably after years and years, they realize that the doers have to manage themselves, or they are more important than the secretaries of the departments, the managers. And I hope this will continue, and I hope in a few years we will not see any management jobs as we have seen in the last years.
Mark Zuckerberg, to illustrate your point from a recent all-hands meeting, I don't think you want a management structure that's just managers managing the people who are doing the work.
Yes, it's the problem of infinite delegation.
So this is one of the problems. Also here in Japan, you see outsourcing. So you have a manager that wants to do a project. He hires another manager of the project. This manager hires a manager for outsourcing, and this outsourcing manager communicates with engineers that are specialized for outsourcing to a party. So then the application is built in India or somewhere outside, and they manage this whole project remotely or with these managers, and then the managers above them get the updates and responsibilities, and they talk above. So in reality, even after 2 layers of managers, they are non-technical. They don't even know what's programmed in India or what is going on with the whole project. They just rely on reports and metrics and say, oh, the project is going good, and then course not always good, so there's not always going the correct messaging what's going on with the project, and then suddenly half year later the project is not going well, and the management has to excuse, and then maybe they got fired, but then the project is already failed, and the middle management or the higher management doesn't know what happened. The only thing they can do is fire managers, because they don't know what happened and who was responsible, because there were 2 or 3 layers managers there, and already some managers and people left. And it's even worse that engineers on the projects leave. Sometimes that is the case. So that, for example, if you have a project that goes wrong and people already know this and they move during the project, then the whole project will go faster downwards, and then the management also sometimes stops, or they have some problems there, and they don't, of course, tell it to the higher management, and then the whole project and the higher management doesn't know really what's going on, and they are ashamed that they don't know. So they just, this is just normal, failing, project can fail. We just invest again, we try again with a new team next year, and that will probably go better. But that is so big excuse I don't like. But that is the culture that was the previous culture of failing is good. As long as you learn something from it. Now most people, engineers that learn from failing, is that they leave the company and go to another company that doesn't fail. So let's continue.
Like Star builds a team around them to delegate the work, but then they hire a team to delegate the work to, and pretty soon the most junior interns in the company are doing all the work, and all the best people are just managing. So it's actually a huge problem. And
this is what he said, that all junior workers do the work. So this is what's happening here now always in Japan. Always if you have a department, the lower people of the just hires, the graduates, they do all the work. Even the people that work a few years in the company, they are also seen higher mentors, and they don't do any work anymore. So this is the problem that Japan had in the business world. This is let the younger people do the work, and if you have worked a few years and you proved yourself in a team, you expect to become manager and start to delegate. Even if you have maybe more knowledge than your team, you don't matter, because if you don't delegate, if you don't come in this manager room, somebody else will come and you will miss the boat. Because this is hierarchy ladder. If you don't step in or you don't follow it in the right order, at the right time, in the right order, you will miss it, and that will keep you stuck at the place where you are, and all your salary. And so people will always here in Japan will go up that ladder as quick as possibly, and also I think that's happened in America, and now they see that the juniors also, here already was the case that the juniors always have to do the work, but here in Japan, in America, they also find out, and they found out that probably this quality is not as good as what the people are that are managing the company. So this is something they really have to think about, and I think also from make it the teams, and management is shared between the teams, and so in that way you can keep the good engineers there. The only problem is that the lower engineers has to get paid the same as the good engineers, but that is a small price you have to pay, because I think you need the good people not only managing but also doing hand-on works. And the only way to do that is that you share the load of management between everybody. You do that and maybe with AI in the future. But that is one of the big mistakes. You can imagine if you have a good person, he goes managing the team, he delegates everything, and the quality goes down. He gets frustrated. Sometimes you see some engineers to stop and go to another place and to become engineer again. And so a lot of people, some companies lost very good engineers because of this, I think. And it is also in the culture that people have to go up in the ladder or in the company ladder, and maybe they now understand that this is not a good idea, and they have to change this way of company ladder and promoting. And that would not only be a good thing for the engineer themselves, that they don't have to become manager, but also for the companies that they keep the talented workers at their place, doing this work and raising the standard of the company. Instead of every so many years you get a new person doing the work, and you lower, of course, then your quality of your efficiency, because the person that were efficient are graded up in another position, and you lose that. Let's continue.
I'd say that a lot of CEOs don't quite understand the problem, because they think that all they have to do is increase the number of reports that managers have. It's not. You also have to reduce the number of layers in the company. And just the ultimate example of this, just to put a point on it, was at Twitter, what we saw is that when Elon went in to basically do a riff at Twitter, the first question he asked in the engineering department is, who's checked in code? And they looked at the code repository, and over 50% of the engineering department had not checked in code in months. And
so you understand, 50% of the engineering department didn't enter code. What were they doing? Doing meetings with other people, and the people that checked in, I almost guaranteed there were only a few people that doing really the work, and the rest is all pushing those few people doing the work. So you have meetings and other engineers talking about what have to be changed, and they push it all to the lower level, and of course most of the lower levels cannot do it, and a few people, you can call them maybe stupid people, were stuck there, and they could do the work, and they got all this work coming to them, and they of course felt responsible for this, working for the company. That's why they stayed and do the work, because the other people that felt that they were used were already gone. Of course they changed jobs, so the whole company was running on a few people that hard for the company, and that in reality tortured themselves to doing these jobs. And the layers above, they made good use of this, not pretending to work, but doing that. I think that was their job, but that was not very productive, as you can hear. Let's continue.
Another reason for that is because the engineers were told that if you want to be a manager in this company, you don't code. Managers.
So this is also true. They say if you want to become manager, you have to delegate your work. later at my also in the Netherlands my company, he says if you have a project you finish and you want to be a good developer or you want to be more management and do multiple projects, you have to delegate the work you did to somebody else and let them do it. And also you have to learn to delegate more. So of course it is your child if you create something, but you have to give it away and then let somebody else take care of it, so delegate it, and so you can continue to the next job. But also if you go in management, it is all about delegation. Are you good in delegation or not? And do you feel and then if you feel responsibility for a delegated job, you're in trouble, because a manager must not feel this loyalty or specific delegated job, because he just has to assign it and then just keep listening to how it is going, and that's it. And he has to do other work. But this other work is not really work, but it's more other managers to inform what the other people that really working are doing. So, yeah. So that is the big problem, irritation also, I think. There's my cursor, there it is.
Don't code. Only ICs code. And no one wants to be an IC, no one ambitious wants to be an IC. They all want to get promoted. So it all gets
Explain what an IC is.
Just individual contributor.
Yeah.
So individual contributor is just a coder. Yeah? So somebody who really makes code and to contribute to the code. So not a designer, not some fancy role, just the people that really sit behind the keyboard and tick their way during the day.
The whole thing turned upside down because of this idea that, again, ambitious people want to be managers, and managers don't do the real work.
Yeah, it's a cowboys who don't know how to ride horses. It's a dangerous precedent to set. What are your takeaways, Chamath, from what happened at Facebook when you look at?
So I want to stop this video here because I think they told already what I told in the previous things. The problem is really that the CEOs, the owners, the board of directors have to wake up to this problem, and they have to see that that middle management is not needed and has to. That's why they made expert systems. That's why they have all these nice metrics, these dashboards, because then you need less managers. But now they hire managers to make those dashboards. So what happened was the managers that was planned to use those dashboards to get more control and more efficient work done under them. They hired sub-managers to give them make this data into this metric system so they can control. So what they at the end happened was, the idea was they use this advanced stuff, these expert systems, so they can see what's going on the work floor. But they didn't know how to do or what something happened, and they started to hire managers to make these reports for them. So they didn't have to use this tool, so just hear how it is going. And these managers get all a piece, so their own piece of this metric, this global metric of the company, and they started again hiring people to get more data, because probably they were not engineers, so they don't understand. So they need somebody between an engineer and a manager, and so you have somebody between an engineer and a manager that gives the metrics. Then there is a sub-manager that overlays all these metrics, and then there is a higher manager that see all these reports and just talk, maybe doesn't even see the reports, and the CEO at the end even doesn't see the reports. He just has his coffee with his sub-managers, with his elite managers, 4 or 5 people, and ask how is it going. Elon Musk sees this layer, the first layer above the engineers, with all the dashboards, with all the metrics, and knows exactly for each project and each group what they are doing. That is what the CEO has to see, and all things between it is not needed. Of course, financial and some other business, sales, they have another way of there's another job. Because if your CEO is an engineer or knows about engineering, he can understand that field, but probably for sales and probably for another direction he doesn't know, and that's why he needs these sub-managers, this CEO for sales and a CEO for something else what he doesn't know. So he only needs 2 or 3 people, and those people use also these metrics so they can exactly what's going on the floor, and then they talk with each other during the meeting what's going on in the company and how they can help each other to make it more efficient. And now that is not the case. Now it is just talk about how is it going, and they don't know really what's going on, because there are 3 layers of management that are of bending the news or bending they filter down. It is a big filter. They filter out the bad news sometimes, or they filter out some stuff that is important, but they don't like to get it up to the higher management. So that is the big problem with these layers of managers. So the people above, you can understand less and less what's going on in the business, and the engineers get more frustrated because the top of the business doesn't know what's going on in the business. So I hope with these what Elon Musk showed, and that was also what everybody was hoping engineer-wise, is that cutting out this dead wood in the company will show other companies what to do to get more agile and more modern. And you see that Meta did it, FedEx is doing it, and maybe some other companies, maybe Google will do this also. You will see a lot of cut in this middle management, so the MBAs, they will get it difficult. And I think there will be another attack on this layer by AI and more advanced systems, so that in the end these work groups, that are people that really doing the work, these agile teams, will be controlled and be managed by AI, and that will be probably what is going, so they can cut out the most expensive part of the overhead, and that is the middle management, and maybe also a piece of the higher management, and replace that by AI, and that is maybe the future. Sorry, I thought I could talk about traveling and people that can work from remote places, but this was more important for me, and I was busy this week about AI. I spent 3 days deep diving in AI, making pictures and making text. So ChatGPT and Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. I wrote also some books about that, and I released them. I still have to release them on Kindle, but they will be released soon. It is amazing, and I also decide I'm too focused on those books and instead of my other work, so I will stop after this day with all those research. I will finish the books, and then I will continue with my other daily work and analyzing Elon Musk and looking at charts and software for predicting the markets. Okay, that's it with the podcast. And I hope it explains why I was silent the last few days, because I was too busy with programming. Maybe I will talk later about what I exactly did and what I programmed and what I found. And it is not as what I expected, of course. It is more complex than people think, and but there is a lot of things that is very useful for the future for businesses and the development of other things, work especially. So that's it for today. See you if I can